Anarchists. There we go. Now, okay, we just did a test run of this part four of No Gods to Guide, No Herds to Follow, Bob Kaufman's Street Bop Zen, 1976. And here we go with pages 26 to page 26 to 32. Then after which we're going to do page 33 to 39 and we'll be done. So anyway, we begin. Finally, I figured out it wasn't Antichrist I was looking at here. It was anarchists. I'm sitting here reading my own writing, man. I can't remember it. It's 50 years ago this was written. So here we go. Now, just a little reminder. I was given the tapes of Blabbermouth Night at the Place by a poet, by photographer Mark Green. And it's, I think it was about a 2-hour tape I had. And I have it in my various archives and shit. But these are excerpts from that tape. I think it was recorded April 15th, 1958, if my memory is correct, somewhere around there. So, or 1957, one or the other. So, here we go. 1957, Blabbermouth Night at the Place. The winner touts home a magnum of champagne. On Blabbermouth Night at the Place, a variety of voices all stood up dressed in the outfit afforded their tribe. Red, white, and blue war paint designated their respective region of representation. But, on the for real side, rooting cheers soared up from the crevices of the leftover bohemians corralled together in mutual abode, shared extemporaneous expression. Either go to Blabbermouth Night or sit home and watch Colt 45 and Paladin on the funeral tube. Now, I'm strung out from early day-long parties. Joy is not the word for happyless Zen bastards. Adulterated boogie spirits dine in gracious taste. Joining laughter intertwines curled smoke into the passage of the soul near a heaven. The rallying cry is serious jokes from an unserious community strewn in discarded coffee tidbits. Laughing stock, unrestrained, thoughtful amusement. President Eisenhower and his sidekick, Vice President Nixon, released bedpan sick jokes. There were catcalls, rolling on a passing boogie train to a giggle convention, muscatel nirvanas of obviously miscarriage, birthday children celebrating the attainment of the secret rite ceremony, a sacrifice, Aztec virgins gleefully tossed into the molten lava while the crowd turns around and exclaim, "Well, that's life," trudging home to eat more peyote and ask themselves, was this all a dream? Now, Blabbermouth Night live telecast, May 1958, Master of Ceremonies, and here's a direct quote. Now, the subject tonight, as any fool can plainly see, is Dick Nixon is a priest. Now, as everyone can see, this reality is a broad statement. It doesn't say what kind of priest, a high priest, a low priest, Episcopalian, a macro snapper, or whatever. We're going to jump right into this thing because we have an awful lot of figures here tonight, just aching to get up on the soapbox here tonight. Tonight is the Bohemian Academy Awards. During one of the intermissions, we are going to award one of the Academy Awards. The Committee of Intelligent Master, Red-Headed Master of Ceremonies, under the pseudonym of Jack London, provided haiku sprayed, enlivening, rousing crowd, motivating, invoke parlances of outright atrocious, high-energy, vigorous, sparkling, radiant, double-charged, syncopated run-on raps of welcome frenzy. Here's Irene Carpentier, beat poetess, interrupts with a blasting burst of feminist pride. She simply does not give a flying fuck what they may think because this woman will be heard. She goes, "Shut up." Now get comfortable. If you don't, I won't speak. Ladies, if there are any, and gentlemen, if there are any, you'll find that what is becoming typical to the North Beach beat is poetry. Poetry written by a small circle for a small circle. She continues, "You must understand that this is an intellectual growth group. You see, we have nothing against homosexuals. Nothing against homosexuals who write poetry. But we do have something against, and we do not dig, homosexual poetry. A topic that won the champagne for the night. All the while riddled between every other sentence is strident laughter and rousing cheers. Rousing cheers, oh no, of the various well-integrated group cross-sectioned in the audience. An offbeat anarchist convention. This gathering was a direct, productive offshoot of the anarchist conventions held in the early 50s, in which many held the widespread belief that after the McCarthy-era witch hunts, cultural revolution was beginning to be looked upon as in a more ecologically sane and coherent approach to solving the Darwinian struggle for existence, as opposed to a straightforward political revolution. Thus the divergent elements assembled for Blabbermouth Night. Philosophically inclined, the Zen group; artistically inclined, the Dalai Dadaists; politically inclined, Marxists; anarchists, all of which were seen in the melodrama of individual differences, made them believe that they were separate, making them believe that they were separate groups. Now, ironically, bullying each other according to their weaknesses. So says Knut Stiles, co-owner of the place. Now, biblical parodies were abundant at the place, biblical updates. If you are bored and you need faith in your life because of questions of the Lord, because you're causing your soul to tremble, always remember, Bear works wonders. Just drop on by Sunrise Jubilee Chinese Southern Baptist Church. Surrender your souls to the Lord and cast your fate to the wind. Jesus was a poet. It ain't like the dude was so heavy. He just got tired of saying the same shit everybody else was saying, so the cat rearranged language a bit and came up with these hip-ass phraseologies. Then there was the inside joke about John the Baptist. People said he was running around town like a chicken with his head cut off. Boo, sis. Hot rumor in Naz. Jesus may be framed by a group of people he healed, because now that they are well, they lost their disability insurance benefits. Even heard word that Lazarus' wife might be involved. She got pretty bummed out because she had started collecting Lazarus' life insurance on his second day in the tomb. When he turned the water into wine, some lush wanted to kick his ass for turning good water into cheap Ripple wine and not a vintage port. Gabriel is into blowing foreign affairs. First he blew his mind, then he blew his horn. Moses is teaching a new course at San Francisco State on elementary mountain climbing. Judas is into wiretapping Catholic confession booths. Mary opened a massage parlor on Broadway where she remains a virgin. 14 children later, Joseph began to get slightly suspicious about her. Immaculate Conception rap. You know, he could never take a hint. When they would sleep together and Mary had 3 dudes on top of her, she kept saying, "But honey, it's only Jack LaLanne teaching me how to firm up my bus line." Now, in the East, prostitution has been a profession. It is probably the oldest profession in the East, with the exception of Bangkok. Now, which town was named after the most oldest profession there, but everybody cracked up. Now, the first record of prostitution was an enterprise, mind you, was in the Mesopotamian Valley between the Tigris and Euphrates River. It is mentioned as having taken place in the 2 cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, Sodom became known for another activity such as prostitution, and there the audience erupts in wild approval. I don't remember what the hell Gomorrah got known for. I had a Cocker Spaniel once by the name of Gomorrah. A passing Gray Line tour coach observing the beatniks gives rhyme and reason to call for time out. Will everybody wave at the Bohemian buses as they go by so they will notice us? Cheering bilingual crowds anoint the eye of tourists, gabbed in Explorer Scout Voyager outfits, letting loose brownie amber preservations for the family album. Back to your positions. Now, you were talking about the 2 cities. To make a long story longer, Sodom drove his Cadillac to the edge of town. wasn't being followed, so he told Gamora to step out to see if they can make a clean getaway. Gamora looks back and turns into a jug of Morton's salt, and she starts screaming, "When it rains, it pours. When it rains, it pours." Sodom says, "Fuck it, man," and slams in the first gear amid the wear and tear of Goodyear tires, leaving primordial footprints on Arabian deserts as Sodom, played by Omar Sharif, does a double take and returns to his mate with Tarzan screams. Now, mind and body were coming together to produce widely gesticulated spoken body English. In 1956 or 1957 or 1958 on Blabbermouth Night at the Place, everyone was espousing radiant floral extemporaneous self-diaries that elucidated in fine detail their true-to-life fantasies where everyone's wishes were coming true with the mere speaking of the word, attracting the wanted attention of myriad tourists who were buying rounds of drinks and spouting dazed children, gathered along with the unsanctimonious, unholy, local, not local, along with the unsanctimonious, unholy local notables and all their fellow artists of life, eventually attracting the unneeded attention of the local police, who instead of joining the party and sharing the wine, decided by reason of their own dissatisfied nature to bust up poetry readings like they were berserk washing machines trying to agitatingly clean out all the dirt, rampaging relentlessly to whatever makeshift podium was in existence and extracting Kaufman as he torrentially espoused one of his poems, thus giving the cloud throne, people watching script writing gods an outrageous screenplay by which to observe the irrefutable blatant reality that rather than being consumed with these displays of brute force, one should simply, and as I said, a snap means I'm entering into a Kaufman quote, and a snap means I'm exiting one. Snap. Believe, believe. Believe in this, young apple seeds, in blue skies radiating young breasts, not in blue-suited insects infesting society's garments. Believe in the swinging sounds of jazz, tearing the night into intricate shreds, putting it back together again in cool, logical patterns, not in the sick controllers who created only the bomb. Let the voices of dead poets ring louder in your ears than the screeching mouths and mildewed editorials. Listen to the music of centuries rising above the mushroom time. Eileen Kaufman continues with a story of why the Kaufman story was initially suppressed. It had a lot to do with Bob not wanting to be famous or anything, but just living his life. And when he is in his life, that's his poetry. During the 50s, they were just holding, there was just a holding of court, like a big poetry table in the coffee gallery used to be, which used to be Miss Smith's tea room. The bagel shop used to be known as the womb of creativity. I first saw Bob in the bagel shop where he was spouting Lord Buckley's flipsters, finger-popping daddies, knock me your lobes, and he was baiting the police and so forth. He was very vivacious and he was just dominating the whole scene. So it's very strange that he's the least known. There's a lot of police action on that. They tried to keep him down a lot. He baited them. He was more frank than a lot of people about the police, and he'd say anything. The neighborhood patrolmen had their sights out for us all the time. They just harassed the hell out of what they called the beatniks. They were trying to run the artists out of North Beach. That's what they were trying to do, run the artists out of North Beach. They wanted to close our places, and they tried to limit our meetings. They didn't want people talking and meeting on the sidewalk. If there were more than 5 people on the sidewalk talking, they would come along and break it up. You think you were breaking the law if you were gathering in a group or something. So we began to surreptitiously meet in the bagel shop and the coffee gallery and the jazz cellar. There was a lot of jazz with poetry, and that came about because it was a spontaneous feeling in North Beach at that time. People would wander into the place we attended and just blow. They would say anything, and the jazz would start to go along with them, like Bobby Seger and the bebop band. Thus we have set the scene. Ken Kesey. Ken Kesey goes, well, I feel that not only has Bob Kaufman smoothed his mind out, but so has she, Eileen Kaufman, his wife. That's a hell of an old lady to have, still looking like she does. I think that if you're a woman, that will stick through you through the waters. It's like having a keel on your boat. You can go through a hell of a storm if you got a really deep keel. A man can be pitched and tossed and lost for a long time, and eventually you find your course again. She deserves a lot of credit, I think. That's Kesey, talking about Eileen. So, where was Kaufman during these shenanigans? Well, he was laughing alone in the crowd. He was not a part of any particular poetic group. Outcast from the outcasts. He was not a part of any particular group. He was an outcast from the outcasts. He didn't identify with the zing-zang holy postural Zens, didn't identify with the glad rag mixed bag potpourri Dadaists, and he could care less about the mesmeric following party line tightrope walking Marxist anarchists. In which realm did he exist? Kaufman was and still is a lover. Love is the true crucible. His meditational party line focus was on the myriad beat ladies. Linda Lovely. Linda Lovely was the prototype of the hipster's ascending lady, cast adrift in the cage song of her infinite jazz and in the myth of her eyes. In North Beach, a mesmeric land full of trailblazing contemporary Madonnas, immersed in Chanel No. 5 and cussed eyelids doing tailspins and tilt-a-whirl loops of euphoric lounging amongst welcome eucalyptus baptisms by fire and brimstone and word of mouth, parading up an imaginary Charlie Parker Skyway Drive, sashaying flesh-mounded and projecting future grinds on the eloping rotundas, raw Hollywood imports, pure prime filet of soul, saucy, sassy sweethearts. Helena Rubinstein made up delectable brilliance, reiterating their achievements in atonal abstract art connoisseur refinements, seriously contemplating intellectual nuances and ensuing conversations designed to captivate the pure at heart, breathing messages of well-oiled heavens awaiting the advertised touch of carefully fingered caresses under cappuccino-strewn tables in a brief initiation to the open invitation of the visionary woman of the beach, mainline direct inspiration to the nearby vibe-doctored musicians transmitting that feeling into sound through the ever-present muse-like sepulchre, ghost-like feline presence so aloft in pastures of perpetual longing that your saint of hidden mind confesses to itself when holding climax factory parades over your well-sprung chambered heart of deity and male worship, screaming in parlors of love, bearing incest and incense, in incestuous chronological recollections of bagel shop jazz, nightfall creatures eating each other over a noisy cup of coffee, mulberry-eyed girls in black stockings smelling vaguely of mint jelly and last night's bongo drummer, making profound remarks on the shapes of navels. Kaufman led to the roar of the din of the coffeehouse crowds, improvising totally spontaneous hypnotic chanting, soul-stirring, crowd-motivating young lady captivations of stream of consciousness raps about the wondrous land of self-created Adam and Eve type of love. Nearby sailors off the USF Dovetail, just into port, were taken aback by the command of this young beat poet's fluid renaissance of words directed into green-eyed receptors. We sat at a corner table devouring each other word by word until nothing was left. Repulsive skeletons. Declaring war on some sailor tourist who objected to his handling of the local woman. Say, Johnny, roars Kaufman, you a boxer? Let's step outside and straighten up and straighten out these dudes. Emotional banks scattered soap opera memories of the following type of one-act play direct from Broadway in North Beach. Preface to a 1958 bagel shop one-act play. Now, the events of the following play are reenactments of a scene which actually occurred during the writing of this story. but for the sake of continuity, it is backdated to the 50s because it's one of those it's eternal melodramas. So in the fall of 75, I'm out partying in North Beach with a lady friend, and I'm carrying around an early version of the Kaufman story in my briefcase. And I'm sitting around Vesuvio's completely bombasted on White Russians, and I'm rapping to my lady friend when in steps Kaufman, who's celebrating an imaginary birthday. And he starts running his standard number on the tourists, giving them poetic excitement bursts of verbiage and looking whacked out and on the wane when he became increasingly obvious that the tourists simply do not understand. They shoo him away from their table saying, "Oh, you know, why don't you just be quiet, you old wino?" And Kaufman ruffles away and looks in the direction of me and my mutual lady companion friend of ours and gives us the acknowledged wink of something going on, but you don't know what it is, do you, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Jones? And a laugh, and he sits down at our table and buys us all drinks. He calls me not by name. He was into his poetic bag, so he renames me Nureyev, and my lady friend he renamed Shirley Temple. When it was beginning, I didn't have a name for him, but in retrospect, he was surely transformed from being Bob Kaufman into Rudolph Valentino, as in the end, he whisked away my lady friend. Bob Kaufman just whisked away my lady friend. Off to a million midnights, black, black. Thus, the characters in the following play are real people played by phony actors. So, Bagel Shop one-act play, 1958, featuring poetry quotes from Bob Kaufman. Here we go. Now, Nureyev was a Puritan who saw his virginal conception of faithfulness completely disintegrate, as his wife, Shirley Temple, suddenly runs off with Rudolph Valentino. Watching them gaze at one another, producing more eyes, more articulating silent than Medusa's thousand tongues. A bridge of eyes, consenting smiles reveal her presence, singing of cool remembrance, happy balls wrapped in swinging jazz, her music, jazz. Nureyev tries classic Russian act of defeated macho defenses. Nureyev declares Valentino unfaithful. Valentino doesn't give a fuck. Becomes another statistic testifying that infidelity is frequent in Bohemian colonies. Valentino declares to Nureyev that this is his vanishing star in the raven-hearted breast of Shirley Temple. Nureyev threatened Rudolph, "Don't tread on me." Rudolph crumbles a dollar bill and orders Nureyev a drink. Rudolph escapes for a moment and runs down to Western Union office and sends telegram to the Pope. Urgent, assistance needed, signed God. No reply. Valentino returns with a battalion of metaphors and analogies in a heavy carpet bag. So he hails a flying carpet and orders the driver to Nirvana. 42 drunken witnesses hear Nureyev profess abundant love for Shirley Temple while he suddenly brandishes his Russian saber. Valentino asks Shirley Temple to go with him to pray in her pubic box at the Mass for Contemporary Dancing Virgins held in the Pope's waterbed. Shirley Temple has been in heat for Valentino's body. Valentino recited poetry about some nympho-caucasoid eating symbols. Shirley Temple eats a symbol of Valentino. Valentino is easy to digest. Nureyev tosses his glass of liquor to symbolize his rage. Valentino counters, goes into famous swoon act. Thousands applaud. Nureyev has 19th nervous breakdown and starts blowing blues like poems, everlasting blue from the inner explosion, self-demolished wrecks proclaiming love on hostile street corners, spewing wordless gas, spinning themselves into minute history chapters of crib scenes filled with mother-father sex, cry, fright, wet pants, screams of delight, hate, love, daddy love, love, mother. End of play. Boom. We'll be right back after this important announcement. Frantic announcer's voice. UFOs are the castaway diaphragms of renegade nuns on their way to heaven. This is from Blabbermouth Night at the Place. Let me repeat that. UFOs are the castaway diaphragms of renegade nuns on their way to heaven. I thought I would die when I first heard that. But anyway, tap into an outrageous beat. a beat picked upon by the myriad youth who had read Jack Kerouac's On the Road, a manifesto of life in the open, well-hitchhiked, rail car hopping, total abandonment lifestyle of welcome poverty. Bob Kaufman and the Beats organized extreme, mythological, heavy, centuries-old, paganistic partying, retaining the spirit of the late 19th century poets and the Dionysian festivities of the instant pleasure or nothing toga-clad Roman grapes-fed weekend orgies, the contagious voodoo chanting rites of celestial Bermudians, the spiritual hymns of finger-popping, soul-expounding Baptist preachers, the festivals of the Indian god Vishnu held every spring in the Euphrates, the spirit of the St. Vitus dance and European 14th century release of early primal freedom-ringing dancing explosions, the sweet cottony histories of celebrating Huns partying on cocoa leaves across the soon-to-be-conquered Alps, and let us walk naked in radiant glacial rains and cool morphic thunderstorms. Let us carry Inca stars to hawk priest rituals on altars of bleeding suns. Let us blow African jazz in Alabama jungles and wail savage love songs of unchained fire. Let us melt jello-like into damp caves of lip-biting women and feel dew-charred dampness of gyrating universes of smoke-flavored jazz. Boom. That's Bob. Bob be jamming. Bob Kaufman was known as the king of the beats. They used to call him the Prince of North Beach, the original bebop poet, the Bayou verse voodoo doctor, the blues patron of jazz violins, the Cypress sonnet water bearer of felonious love doctrines, the desepulchred arisen spirit of swan song Orpheus. People believe Kaufman to be a reincarnation of the Greek god Orpheus, one of the last souls to reincarnate from the Bardo of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Having so vividly remembered the toils of his previous lives, he became disenchanted with ambition, searching a considerable length of time in pursuit of the life of a private man who has no cares. Having difficulty in finding this type of life neglected by everyone else, choosing the life of a swan to symbolize song and music and to reincarnate as a poet or a musician. Epilogue. You have to illogically look at an illogical world. Bob Kaufman, Fall, 1975. So, in this epilogue, we begin. Utopian warriors haunched in deathless rope on the desolate sands of the Kalahari, going to a place of nowhere, strolling bare-chested Neanderthal blues, city-searing, scorching, mythic angel of verses, attired in a patriotic vagabond flag-waving, roaming gypsy outfit. Unglued minds don't stick in the grooves of deceptively bright societies. Stumbling into North Beach bare with a pen in hand and sitting down humped over the table, producing the most amazing fortuitous windows, scalded, outlandish, open being, revealing unfoldments ever spread on parchment, emerging as an evangelist of poetry, catapulting into the sacred dome of true wisdom where the unknown is always in perpetual transformation into the known. Bob Kaufman is the romantic reincarnated Lord of Light, poetic visionary who would simply die for poetry, as he says. Dying for love is the same as dying for poetry. Bob Kaufman maintains the love of the truth that only art speaks. The artistic dictum speaks unbreakable coded visions of quintessential beauty. Beauty is the rare bird of envious paradise whose whereabouts is betrayed by scarlet tears. Bob Kaufman, the essence of soul, wrenches itself and sears the air in the crystallized habits of notes bombarding meticulous poetic declarations of independence, pouring forth courageous assemblages of total recall, enclosed within Kaufman's minuscule encapsulations of multivariable levels of psychic truth as beheld through his Singapore slang eyes, often seen carousing and sweeping up the streets of North Beach in a totally breezy flare, flamboyantly, brazenly, bright, brilliant blue. his greased to the hilt hair and waving to the Broadway sun scarf, toe protruding sandals, shuffling his rampaging body that wails in complete top of the lung war love songs, whooping it up as he continues his vigilant historic chronicles of an era in time, making his mind completely negative and taking mental photos of every creeping movement of every living creature since immemorial, primordial, embryonic beginnings of the rise of the earth from its amoeba conception to its thousand-petaled crown chakra present. The beat seems to reoccur when the nation is between wars. The last lingering hint of the trace of the beat occurred at the end of World War II and the start of the heavy escalation of the Vietnam War. Meditating monks have had visions of mushroomed Hiroshimas etched and implanted on their mind's eye, and the hearing of the sound of silence, of great inverted cosmic sounds of atoms imploding upon themselves, making pre-orphan sunspots of atomically vaporized post-pimping rickshawed harlots recouping from one-night stands on all-day corners and all-day music, whist infernal Wizard of Oz tornadoes grinding slant-eyed Sony business-coded geisha patrons pulverized into passive, non-aggressive pace, no longer a threat to international security, permanent Matisse shadows on the industrial brought to a grinding halt suit-lace walls. Seek and find Hiroshima's children. Send them back. Send them back. Civil defense warnings in dark ages. Dark ages exist when you must use atomic bombs to get a little light. No civil defense warnings blared in Hiroshima after Truman's fatal decision. We honestly tried to cover up our greatest sin. That's the thing. They cover up. They cover up and say the threat is communist attacks when the only attacks that are happening are from within. They cover up dead bodies and they provide disaster relief after they provide the disaster. Yeah, that's the thing, future. Future men with 3 penises seducing future women with vaginas in their armpits. Future children with lavender eyes between their toes, wiping crazy fallout from the ass of their future skulls. A thing, future. We pause for this break from the future. Voyeuristically, I was absorbed by my own vision as I was casually gazing through the shattered portals of my elevated third eye. The world as I knew it disappeared. In its place was the remnants of the vision of the pure orange illuminated light which sunburst and prevailed as the only color in my field of vision. Simultaneously, while absorbed in the view of this orange light, a grand sound occurred. A sound moving inward from the air, unlike your standard exploding sound, turning the orange into mushroom-resembled atomic blasts. The sound of atoms imploding. Scene dramatically shifts. Vision is immediately replaced by a 2-dimensional, all-encompassing cinemascopic fish lens view of a woman carrying a Parisian parasol and dressed in 18th century lace composed of dots of solid green. Scene is solid green with black dots that resemble Matisse. As the parasol twirling lady turns around 360 degrees, and as she is turning to the side, she is rendered invisible, since she is only exist in the post-orange atomic blast created second dimension. Her image reappears. I say hello. Remember your national emergency. When you see one small mushroom cloud and 3 large ones, it is not a drill. Turn the TV off and get under it. And to quote T.S. Eliot, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know this place for the first time. And that is the end of section 4, part 4. Page 26 to page 32. No gods to guide, no herds to follow. Bob Kaufmans Street Bop Zen, 1976. Copyright Tony Seymour. Back in 76.